And good morning, everybody. Excuse me. Welcome to Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Kim Davis. It is Wednesday. Really, we typically do Chalk Talk on Tuesdays, but because the Houston Texans were in OTAs and Tuesday was the day that they were available, it was the media availability this week. I switched it to Wednesday. So thank you all for being patient and being flexible, being nimble, being able to punt, or however you want to say it, to join me today. Thank you for being here. It is midweek, hump day. So listen, if you work Monday through Friday, you're halfway through. At any rate, thank you as always for being a part of Chalk Talk. So we're going to talk some OTAs today, the Houston Texans on the field. One of the people that I know many of you were curious about, I know I was curious about as well, is Tank Dell. He was on the field. He looked like the Tank the last time we saw him before he broke his leg last season. So just in case you are not up to speed. So remember last year, Tank Dell got hurt kind of on a goal line play, being hit from the back and broke a leg, had to have surgery. His rookie season ended early. It was a spectacular season, right? It started off spectacularly, if you will, but it ended early. And he had been rehabbing in the offseason. Last we heard, he was ready to, get back on the field. And then last month in April, right around the time of the draft, he was at home in Florida, was at a party or a function. That was a shooting at the venue, and he was shot. They said it wasn't serious, but we had not heard a lot about how the extent of the injury. Really, the most that we heard was from CEO and Chairman Cal McNair at the Texans golf tournament a couple of weeks ago, when he said, well, feel positive about Tank. Of course, he's going to have to rehab to get back to where he was. That was the first we'd heard in terms of like, how serious is it, or anything of that nature. So this past weekend, Tank posted to his Instagram account some video of him working out with his trainer, or with his speed guy. And he looked amazing. I mean, he looked like he was going full steam ahead. He looked like the Tank we last saw on the field. And then yesterday, we got a chance to see him on the field at OTAs, and he looked great. So Tank is, clearly, green light. They weren't holding him up. He looks like he can do everything he needs to do. And that's great, as he good for him personally. And then, of course, good for the team as well. One, because he's a guy that so many of them just connect with. And then also because he is, he's super talented, right? He's super talented, and he's going to mean a lot to that receivers room, especially in year 2. So that is the update on Tank Dell. What I can also tell you is that, of course, we talked with head coach DeMeco Ryans after we got a chance to see practice yesterday, see the OTAs. And this was DeMeco talking about Tank and just really what he wants to see, what he wants players to get out of the OTAs in general. Here's head coach, DeMeco Ryans.
So, happy for Tank to get back out there. We know he went through a very tragic situation, right? We're just happy that he's here, happy that he's back out, being able to do what he loves doing, that's playing football. So it's fun to see him running around, right? Being the same player he's been before, just making plays, right? Being a dynamic player for us. So everyone is excited to see Tank back out.
What do you look for at day one of something like this, so early, so far away?
Yeah, for us, it's for our guys to really understand the daily installs that we're doing, right? We want to get our guys a head start before we hit training camp. So this is pretty much a preview of camp, right? We give our guys a daily install, see what players can grasp, how much they can handle, right? See, can they retain the information from the classroom to the field? And we're just seeing who can go out and execute the things that we've been preaching over the past couple of weeks in phase 1 and phase 2. Can guys go out and execute in an efficient manner? That's what we're looking for, and seeing how much guys can truly handle.
So that was head coach DeMeco Ryans talking about how great it was to see Tank Dell back on the field yesterday, and really what he wants to see players get out of these OTAs, right? To really understand the installs, and for the young guys, the rookies, to understand how they do business here as the Houston Texans, right? This is the beginning. They've been working out throughout the offseason. He also talked about how you can tell who's in shape, and guys that come in shape are a step ahead, right? They're ready. And I don't want to say a step ahead. You're where you should be, right? So that you can be ready, learn what you need to learn during OTAs, be ready for mini camp, because that's going to be next. And then once they get to training camp in July, it is full steam ahead until they get through the end of the season, which they hope ends in New Orleans, because the Super Bowl will be played in New Orleans in 2025. I'm just saying. And just the idea that I mentioned Super Bowl as we're talking about the Houston Texans, when have we done that in recent years, right? And it's a possibility. There are people looking at the Houston Texans where anything's possible, but it wasn't even a conversation we would have had prior to now. You guys would have probably stopped watching me, not tuning in to Chalk Talk, because you would think, well, she didn't know anything about football if she's going to say the Super Bowl and the Texans in the same sentence. So I'm not making any predictions. I'm just saying that's the ultimate goal. It's the ultimate goal for everyone. But the Texans have put together a team and are building on something from last year that makes them a viable candidate to be able to be discussed as a potential to get that far in the season. Anyway, welcome to Chalk Talk, right? Welcome to the Houston Texans, year 2 with DeMeco Ryans and CJ Stroud. CJ was at practice yesterday. Most players were. Got a chance to get a look at Joe Mixon. Didn't see Stephon Diggs yet, and a couple other players that DeMeco talked about. One was Kenyon Green. I asked about Kenyon Green because if you'll remember, he was the offensive lineman, the guard that they drafted the year before DeMeco was head coach out of Texas A&M with a first-round pick. He struggled a lot as a rookie. Right. And then last year he went through camp and he didn't necessarily look great. And at the end of camp, we were told he was basically going to be put on injury reserve for the season. He wasn't play for the season. They were going to give him time to heal. And that, if I remember what Nick Caserio said back then, was it wasn't a matter of if, but when. At the time, I know many of us thought, well, if you knew the kid was, or the young man wasn't healthy, why wouldn't you address it earlier? That's neither here nor there. I was curious about what DeMeco's seen from Kenyon Green and his expectations of him going into OTAs. And here is DeMeco talking about Kenyon Green.
Kenyon has done a really great job of putting himself in position, right, to compete. He did a great job of working throughout the offseason. He had the surgery last year, so he was battling back to rehabbing. But when the beginning of the year hit, he was just able to focus on himself, focus on his body, getting in shape, getting stronger. And it's really good to see him back, being able to, play at full health. I think that's what's Kenyon's biggest thing. Once he gets over that hurdle, now we can see how good of a football player Kenyon can actually be when he's not battling and dealing with injuries. So I'm excited for what's ahead for Kenyon because he's really put in the work to give himself a really good chance this year.
So we'll see, that left guard spot, which is where Kenyon was brought into play, is a spot that, still needs a person, because they did make some moves. They did draft an offensive lineman, but he's a tackle out of Notre Dame. And so, they do need, I'm sure that Titus Howard really wants him to find somebody to play that left guard spot so that he can go back to his regular position at tackle, right? But you have the bookends. If you got Titus on the right and Laramie on the left, you're already ahead of the game. And then what do you do with the interior? Juice Scruggs yesterday looks like he was getting reps. It's OTAs, but getting work at the center position. That was the thought last year, but he got injured early. He came back and he played well, but we'll see. It all starts up front, right? Especially since they want to do better with the run game. They brought in Joe Mixon. And so the offensive line needs a little more stability. And so hopefully they'll have that. Another person that DeMeco talked about yesterday was running back Dameon Pierce. Now, remember in year 1, Dameon had a great rookie season, but last year he came in year 2 and he struggled. He lost his starting job. I mean, he did have some injuries, but even when he talked to us sometimes, he wasn't super comfortable in the offense. He talked about how he was almost having to start over. And so it was a struggle for him last year. Well, let's forward to now year 3. It'll be his second year in this system, in this offense. And got a chance to, when you saw Dameon yesterday, his body looked different. I never thought that he was out of shape before, but he looks like he's really been working right in the offseason. So DeMeco talked about Dameon Pierce and what he's seen from him and really, in a way, some of the expectation. Here is Coach Ryans talking about Dameon Pierce, also known as DP.
Yeah, what I've seen from Dameon this offseason, it's a guy who's put in the work. As you mentioned, he's changed his body, right? He's strong. He's been working out every day of the offseason program. Dameon, not only here just working out, man, I'm proud of Dameon for him going back and finishing his degree at Florida. So, I mean, just a complete man, just working out as a football player, but also finishing that degree means a lot to him. And I see Dameon having a very clear headspace as we're out working, and I think that will allow him to have a really productive year this year. And he has everything it takes, right, to be a really good running back for us. And I think having him and Joe as a 1-2 punch would be very beneficial for us all.
So congratulations to Dameon Pierce. Can't wait to get a chance to tell him that. Didn't know until we were yesterday doing the interviews after practice. But congratulations to him for going back and finishing and getting his college degree. And like Coach said, it's all about being in the right headspace, being in shape, having the right mindset. And when you talk about a 1-2 punch, then that to me says he expects Dameon Pierce as running back too. We know that Joe Mixon is going to be RB1, right? He'll be the guy carrying the bulk of the load. But if you see that Dameon Pierce can come in and be the second running back, good for DP and good for this Texans team. So a lot of positives out of camp yesterday, out of practice. It is early, but it's always good to just listen. It's always football season, you guys. You always hear me say that. Last week we talked about the schedule. I was on the KPRC schedule release show with Randy McElvoy and Aaron Wilson. It was we did a live stream show on last Wednesday night talking about the schedule. It's an exciting schedule, but that schedule is a beast. The Texans will play 3 games in 11 days, in an 11-day span at one point, because they do have, they've got some primetime games. They have some nationally televised games, which they haven't had in a while, but that comes with a price. Also, what comes with a price is them rising up in the ranks, right? Being the winner of their division, the AFC South last year, they're playing a first place schedule, and that schedule is no joke. We'll be talking about that more as we go through the summer and before we get to the season. But year 2 will be really a test for the Texans to be able to build on what they started last year. And I'm going to say this as a point of perspective. So 2 years ago, the Jaguars won the division. They were the first place team. And so they played a first place schedule last year. It makes a difference. And here's one example that stands out where the Jaguars had to play the Kansas City Chiefs in the regular season, and the Texans had to play had an opponent like the Arizona Cardinals. Like, in terms of getting to win the division in year 2. So what I'm saying is the schedule matters. Winning matters, but if you're going to be a champion, you're going to have to go through the tougher schedules to get there. You're going to have to go through the tougher components. Last year was a great schedule for this young Texans team. This year, they're not going to sneak up on anybody. They are a team that people around the league are looking at. Clearly the NFL recognizes, because they gave them these nationally televised games. And they've got a Monday night game in Dallas in November. They've got a Thursday night game. They've got a Sunday night. They've got a couple of Sunday night games on NBC. They also will play Christmas Day, which will be odd because it's on a Wednesday, but they'll play, and that game's going to be on Netflix. And they have a Saturday game against the Chiefs late in the season, so that game will be not a night game, but it'll be a nationally televised game as well. So basically 6 games nationally televised after having none for several years. Yeah, this is going to, buckle up. It is going to be quite a ride. Speaking of it, we talked about what the Texans have done offensively to really add some other pieces to the offensive side of the puzzle. Dalton Schultz talked yesterday after practice and was asked about, getting these additional pieces to help with the offense. And here is what tight end Dalton Schultz, who also said he was really glad to be back, right? He had a 1-year contract coming in. He said he made it clear to his representatives that this is where he wanted to be. And so he is glad to be a Texan. But this is what he said about really their what they have on offense.
Yeah, it's fun. It's great to have, a fully loaded clip, metaphorically speaking. Right? But at the same time, we all understand that, it doesn't matter how much talent you have if you can't go out there and execute and do what's, needed of you. We know we're not surprising anybody this year. You know what I mean? People know CJ is a good quarterback. People know Nico's a good receiver. Joe Mixon out of the backfield. Like, nobody's coming into the game thinking like, all right, it's just the Texans. We got this. So we understand that, the work that we're putting in now is going to be crucial to our success later in the year.
Yeah. Metaphorically speaking is right. He's right. No one's going to be surprised, and people are going to be looking to see what this Texans team can do and prepared for it, right? They're going to be prepared for it. CJ is it established? I mean, listen, CJ Stroud has almost become the standard. Like when you saw them talking about, I say them, analysts and pundits talking about the NFL draft this year, and they were talking about the different quarterbacks coming into the league. And to a man, you heard them say, well, you wonder if they'll be able to come in and have the kind of success that CJ Stroud did. Do they have the kind of system? Can they? I mean, he was a standard. He was a guy that they mentioned. So when they look at what rookies can do, it's almost like CJ Stroud became the standard to measure how well these young quarterbacks do coming into the league. It's going to be really fascinating. And speaking of that, one of the games that the Texans will play on primetime is in week 2, their home opener. They'll host the Chicago Bears. That'll be a Sunday night game on NBC. So it'll be Caleb Williams, the guy that some people said the Texans should have waited and gotten a quarterback in year 2. He'll be coming to town because he'll undoubtedly be he'll be the starter for the Bears, and CJ Stroud in his second year. Caleb Williams as a rookie, CJ Stroud in year 2. It should be fun, but there's going to be a lot of that, right? There'll be a lot of those matchups along the way. So I am already excited about football season. And one of the players that is also exciting is linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair. He's played with. He's been in DeMeco's system before. They were together in San Francisco. As a free agent last year, he went to play for the Titans, and now he is with the Texans, and he will undoubtedly be the starting Mike linebacker. But DeMeco talked yesterday about what he remembered most about meeting Azeez initially was just how smart he is. And so yesterday, Azeez talked about really on his play, because he said he felt like he needed to really prove himself after being in San Francisco. He said because, not many people outside the building knew how good he was. I mean, they saw his numbers, but the question is like, well, can he do this on his own? Does he have to can he do it if he's not with this system, with this group? And so when he went to Tennessee, he says he feels like he proved that. He always had a fond place in his heart for DeMeco. He thinks a lot about DeMeco Ryans. But listen, here's Azeez that talks about really kind of how he got here and about who he is as a player.
I think, the biggest thing is like on the average team, the third linebacker who plays 25 You know, I think in 1 year the most I played was like 70% of the snaps, and that was only for one season. You know, you just want to see, like, wow, we've been having a lot of. If this was a team meeting, boy, we have a lot of fines getting handed out. Bad. But no, I mean, just wanting to see the consistency. I think in this league, you got to be consistent. And when you're sporadically getting snaps, just based off of, you know, the pecking order. You know, I was the undrafted guy. Dre was a 5th rounder. Fred was 3rd rounder the year prior. And all of us just continued to blossom, obviously some earlier than the others. So I think being real with myself, I understood how that looked. Even though I believed in myself already, it was like, okay, I gotta be able to go out there and, you know, compete and show them like, hey, I can be an every down linebacker, stay on the field. I mean, I played over 1,000 snaps last season, and, you know, was one of the tops in the league in tackles. And a lot of my tackles I made were in the run game were within 3 yards. It was over 100 and something plus tackles, and just in the run game alone within that small 4-yard box window. So I think just showing people that I can do everything, and obviously sideline to sideline is what I've always done, and you know who I am. But I just think, like I said, the sky's the limit for myself. You know, I have high expectations for myself. You know, DeMeco coming in, he was hard on me and Dre Greenlaw, and I'm grateful for it because now there's nobody that can outdo the standard that I already have for myself.
So that is Aziz. And a couple of things when he talked about being fined because somebody's phone went off. It happened a couple of times yesterday. And so he was joking like, man, if this was in a meeting, you'd be fine. But when you think about what he said about his play, about how many tackles, how many plays, how many snaps he played, which means he stayed pretty healthy. But when he talked about the run game and how effective he was making tackles within that 3-yard, that 4-yard kind of window box, that's impressive, right? That means you're not letting guys get to the back, get to the secondary, right? You're stopping them up front. And so it is it's going to be interesting to see. And obviously he's going to be a factor and a fun person to cover. So that is a linebacker from Tennessee, played with DeMeco or for DeMeco in his system in San Francisco, went and played with the Titans last year and is now here, is a Houston Texan. So he got here as fast as he could, right? So couple of comments. Hey, good morning. Great evening. Wow, great evening. And Christmas. Okay, not sure what that means, but I'm glad you made the show, Sun Syria. It's always good to have you being a part of the audience. I know how much you enjoy Chalk Talk, so I don't know what the great evening and Christmas was, but very, very cool. Also, listen, before I jump out of football, I wanted to stop, and I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with an article or some comments that Emmitt Smith made recently in the past couple months. And then Jared Bell, who's also a friend, he's a friend of the show. He's been on Chalk Talk before too. He is the NFL writer for USA Today. He did an interview with Emmitt Smith. Emmitt Smith, of course, is the legendary former Dallas Cowboy running back. And he was who went to the University of Florida. And Emmitt was sharing his thoughts about what's going on at the university, how the university has, gotten rid of, done away with, if you will, DEI. And he was not happy about it. I'm trying to see if I can find, he said, one of the things he said was, when I see them destroying DEI for the sake of politics, it's not even common sense. So, I thought it was interesting to hear from Emmitt Smith, because we don't hear a lot of, a lot of times players don't really get involved in these conversations, right? About things like DEI. But there's a reason that he did when he talked about, why he thought it was necessarily. He made let me see if I can find it and show it. Let's see here. Because if I can show it to you while I'm reading it to you, the comment that he made. and then also share the article but clearly he is not happy. Okay, here it is. So let me share my screen. Okay, so this is what Emmitt Smith is kind of tough to read. It was on Twitter, but this is what he said. He says, I'm utterly disgusted by the UF's, that's University of Florida's decision and the precedent that it sets. Without the DEI department, the job falls to the office of the provost, who already has their hands full to raise money for the university and continue to advance the academic studies and athletic programs. We cannot continue to believe and trust that a team of leaders all made up of the same background will make the right decision when it comes to equality and diversity. History has already proven that that is not the case. We need diverse thinking and backgrounds to enhance our university, and the DEI department is necessary to accomplish these goals. Instead of showing courage and leadership, we continue to fail based on systemic issues. And with this decision, UF, the University of Florida, has conformed to the political pressures of today's time. To the many minority athletes at UF, please be aware and vocal about this decision by the university, who is now closing the doors on other minorities without any oversight. And to those who think it's not your problem and stay on the sidelines and say nothing, you are complicit in supporting systemic issues. So those were the thoughts of Emmitt Smith. I thought it was important to share, right? Because those are the kind of conversations that have to be had. And for Emmitt Smith to be one of the ones, willing to stand up and share his thoughts. And so he basically ripped Florida for eliminating all the DEI roles, and, it's not necessarily what you normally expect or for an NFL legend to kind of stick his neck out on something that is, to become a powerful voice for DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion, which has been on the chopping blocks. It's happened here in the state of Texas. The state universities in this state, I don't want to say they gladly have chopped it, but it's almost like a relief in the state of Texas. That's how it felt, right? So you see that happening, but as I'm looking at kind of restarting my speaking career, and I'm looking at topics, what are the key topics, right? That corporations, and these are corporations, not private companies and corporations that bring in speakers for conferences and trainings and meetings. And one of the top topics continues to be DEI. And I'm like, well, wow, because if you listen to what's happening politically, it is something that's not necessary. So the fact that Emmitt Smith is, it was a wide-ranging interview that he did with Jared Bell at USA Today, but he was clear about his displeasure with what his alma mater did. And he said, it's not even common sense, right? He said, when I see them destroying DEI for the sake of politics, it's not even common sense. This is just sheer out of spite and sheer power, right? So that was Emmitt Smith. He's an alumnus, has been a supporter of the University of Florida. And he said, being an alumnus and having contributed as much as I did on the football field, and to walk away with a University of Florida degree and feeling I'm a part of the university from afar and still at heart, I was extremely disappointed. He said, when I was in college and everywhere I've been, they always talked about leadership and how we needed to become leaders, especially as athletes. And so he is stepping into that role. And I just wanted to share that with you, because those are some of the things that sometimes we talk about on this show, and to highlight the fact that there are some athletes who stand up. And so congratulations, to Emmitt Smith for saying, hey, this is not okay. and I'm not going to be quiet. And others should have a voice and should stand up as well, because he said, if you don't say anything and you're just quiet on the sidelines, then you are complicit. I couldn't have said it any better myself. So Emmitt Smith, thank you for, walking the walk, right? Not just talking about it, but actually being about it. So I thought I would kind of round out our section on football today with the comments of Emmitt Smith, and then we'll follow up. I'm going to even reach out to see if I can get Emmitt Smith. Who knows? But I'll try and see if I would love to talk to him about it, because I think it's important. And because he has done a couple of interviews about it, maybe he'd be willing to have a conversation about why he feels so strongly that he needed to say something about the University of Florida because of what the governor there led in terms of the attack on DEI, kind of like the governor in the state of Texas has led the attack on DEI here. Same thing happened in Florida, right? Kind of twin states, but who here is saying anything? Anyway, I digress. Let's hop over and talk a little bit about those Houston Astros, right? It has been, we talked about the rough start that the Astros have had. They did win an extra inning game last night at home. And yes, it's the Angels. The Angels are not very good, but it doesn't matter. This Astros team needs a win whenever they can get one. And they have been on a roll. They have won 8 of the last 10 games. Their record is now 22-27, which means they're only 5 games under 500, and they're 5 games out of first place. So Seattle is in first place with the 27-22 record, right? The opposite. The Rangers are in second place at 24-25. The Astros only trail the Rangers by 2 games for second place, but we're looking at that top spot. And it's May, and we talked about, I remember doing a show at Channel 11 last month, and one of the questions was, over the next month, what should the Astros goal be in terms of what should the goal be, right? And so to get to 500, and we thought, yeah, getting to 500 is great, but that's aggressive, right? Because when you fall they were 12 games under 500, a week and a half ago? When you fall that far below the mark, it's harder, right? Because the other teams are still playing too. So the fact that they've cut that to 5 games, if they could get, today is the 22nd of May. So there are 9 more days in the month. Not sure that they can actually be at 500, but if they get to be 2 games under 500 by the end of the month, I think that is huge progress, because now it doesn't seem you're not so far in the hole. But they've been getting some good outings. I mean, on Tuesday night, I mentioned they had an extra inning win. On Monday night, they had a tough loss at home where Framber Valdez had an unusual outing where he gave up 2 3-run home runs in 1 inning. So, man, if Dusty had been here and it left him in, they probably would have just not even let him come back the next day. But anyway, it was rough. It's not something you usually see from Framber, but they lost that game really in that inning. They couldn't really come back from it. But they bounced back and won last night. So the Astros are back in action tonight at home. They play the Angels again. Actually, it's a day game. Today's Wednesday. It's getaway day. So they play again today at 1:10. And, they're hoping to close it out and win the series. They would win it 2-1. So that's what they've got to start doing. The Houston Astros have to start winning some of the series. And so a win today would give them a win. They'd win this series and continue to improve their record. Here's the other thing in terms of, there's a couple other pieces of news around the Houston Astros. Remember a couple of weeks ago, we talked about Jose Abreu being basically optioned to West Palm to go and really work on his swing. We heard from general manager Dana Brown, who talked about he felt like somebody asked for Dana, can he be fixed? And he said, I do think he can be fixed. It's not a matter of bat speed. He's just not he's not connecting, and his timing is off, is what he said. It was his timing. It was a timing thing. And then Joe Espada echoed those same concerns. Of course, he also talked about the analytics of it, but they felt like if he went down, had time to really work on his timing and just focus on that, get enough at bats, because you can't really work on it like in a game. And if you had sent him to just asking him to, like, say, Sugarland or AAA, is him and, how many other players. So for him to really get the work, they thought the best thing was to send him to West Palm, the site, which is where they have their spring training. Yesterday, Joe Espada said that Abreu has been looking good and he could be back as soon as this weekend. So we will see. Does he get back this weekend? Is he in the lineup this weekend? John Singleton has been playing getting most of the work at first base. And he has had obviously some moments offensively where he swung the bat well, gotten on base, been a part of some of the good things that they're doing. But what happens with Abreu, right? If you bring him back, who do you move? Do you put him back initially into the starting lineup? It's going to be interesting to see how they handle this. So stay tuned. One, to see if he is brought back up this weekend, and then how soon he gets back into the starting lineup, into the rotation. I imagine if when they bring him back, they want to get him in pretty quickly, because a lot of this is also mental. So he went down, he took the demotion, if you will, the assignment, and he comes back, and you need to probably get him in the lineup sooner than later, because you don't want to really mess with his confidence. I'm just saying, not that he doesn't have confidence, but that's a big thing to ask a veteran, a former MVP, to go to be optioned back to where where your spring training is. So we'll see what happens. I will keep you posted. Another little bit of thing that happened last week with the Houston Astros. On last Tuesday, they had a swap on their TV broadcast. So Julia Morales, who's a sideline reporter and does pregame and postgame stuff, interviews, she swapped places with the color analyst. So she was then in the booth, right, and sat in the seat to do color. And then TK went and was a sideline reporter for that day. Here's Julia talking about really the response she got from the game she had. I mean, when we started talking to Joe Espada before the game, he kind of dapped up and said, "Hey, good job last night." So here's Julia talking about the response she got from doing sitting in the chair to be the color analyst.
It feels like I'm just getting a million hugs from all the fans and the people that work with me and work around me. I'm so overwhelmed in the best way possible. It's been a lot of fun.
And the players, I've seen a couple come up to you.
I got a fist bump from Justin Verlander, so no big deal. But you think about it, these are the people who I didn't want to let down. It's the people that this game means so much to. It's, the ones who, like, this is everything to them, right? The things that Justin Verlander has given to this game, and he's just one of them. I mean, I could go on for every single guy that puts on a uniform. Think about Bill Brown and all the the legend play-by-play guy for the Houston Astros, and I want to make him proud. Like that, getting messages from people like that meant the world to me. Because they are what made this so cool. So for me to even sit in the chair was a dream, but to be able to get the feedback has been pretty great.
So not only did she get great feedback, we talked about really the moment, right? Because while Julia was sitting in the chairs play-by-play for the Astros, first time a woman's ever done that for this team, and it didn't happen much around the league. The team they actually played, Seattle, has a regular female broadcaster. And so it was history. So you had women in both color analyst spots. So that itself was history. Julia, while she said she didn't want that to be the main story, she recognized the importance of the moment and she talked about it.
Jenny Kavnar, I'm a huge fan of. I'm actually she's one of my best friends in the business. She took me under her wing a long, long time ago when I first started out in this gig. I knew she was a great person, but I also knew how well she knew the game and how to do this. So for her to get that job was really cool for me. Like, I cried when she got the job. I was so happy for her, and the emotions were so high. And then to be able to do this together was so cool, because I called her. I needed help prepping for the A's. I could pick her brain, and she helped me get ready. She gave me advice. She's been through it. She's doing it on a daily basis. So she's had her challenges and learning how to do it in different ways. So I have learned a ton from her. I know it's important. I didn't want it to be the big headline going in by any means. It was more about me and Todd switching for a day. But it is what it is. And I'm also very, very overwhelmed with the messages I'm getting where moms are saying their girls kind of perked up when they heard my voice all last night watching the Astros game, and who's calling the game, or who is that mommy? That kind of hits home, and I know it's a big deal. So I need to acknowledge that and make sure that people know that that's a big deal as well.
It is a big deal. And so I appreciate her talking about it. When I asked her about it, I could not make it mention the moment, because it is history. And so, congratulations to Julia. She said that she had, she worked hard to get ready. She practiced back in 2020 that she was supposed to do some of that work in spring training. But if you remember, that was a COVID year where spring training was cut short. So they didn't have all those games. And so this is actually her first time sitting in the chair and doing the color analyst role. So congratulations to her on a successful night. And she's right. You can't not really acknowledge the moment. Hey, Kim Edwards-Williams, good morning, my friend. Thank you for hopping in on Chalk Talk on this special day. And thank you guys for being nimble and making the change because of Texans practice this week. Another change next week, I'll make sure I put out a notice. We'll do Chalk Talk on a Wednesday next week. Next Tuesday's election day, and I have a role with that. So we will do Chalk Talk on next Wednesday. And then, of course, next Thursday, I'll get a chance to go back to OTAs again. So that's our next media availability. And but follow me along throughout the week. You'll get updates. I have other sound that I haven't played yet, and I'm going to be sharing that as well. I would like if you guys could drop it in the chat, or if you could send me an email, even if you're watching now or if you watch the replay. I'm really trying to build my Chalk Talk email list. If you'll send it to me so that I can add you guys when special things are happening. I am considering launching, in addition to the show, a Chalk Talk newsletter, which has extra things that we don't get on the show, extra content. And I want to know if you guys would be interested in that. How many of you would actually subscribe? It's not going to be a paid newsletter, but I do want to know if there's an interest for it. So let me know, drop it in the chat or send me an email. I'd love to know your thoughts. And as always, things that you might want to see here on Chalk Talk. I have some fun things planned, but I always want to check in with you about people you maybe want to hear from or content that you like on the show, because we are all a part of the same tribe together. I appreciate you. I do, for being supporters and participating. It's what makes the show really fun and makes it, inspires me to continue to do it week in, week out. For those who don't know, if you're new to Chalk Talk, welcome. I've done this show now. This is the 11th year where I've done Chalk Talk weekly. Every week, there may be 2 weeks out of the year where I don't do a show around Christmas, depending on when it falls, and maybe another time. But other than that, we are here each and every week, and we've done it for 11 years. So we got some staying power. So I wanted to share that with you. I am going to be doing something out at Cigar Week, a golf tournament on Friday. They're having the golf tournament as a part of this Cigar Week is a fundraiser for the Steve Francis Foundation. So if you are a golfer or like golf, if you're around, if you're at the tournament, come by and say hello. I'll be there early doing a couple of interviews. Looking forward to interviewing my good friend and the new head coach at TSU, Chris Dishman, about what he's got going on over at TSU and what he's got planned. He's super excited about being ahead of that program and really cares about those young men on and off the field, and the whole player, which is, something I've always really wanted to see more people be interested in. And so we'll talk to Chris a little bit about that on Friday. And I will probably be able to share some of that. I'm not shooting it, but I will get some of it so I can share it here on the show as well. All right, we're out of time for today. Thank you guys for being a part of Chalk Talk. Remember, If you're in Texas, especially Houston, early voting is this week. It goes through Friday. Make sure you go vote. This is the runoff from the primary that took place in March. There have been a lot of elections this year, right? There's special election. There's going to be another election next month. Let's not worry about that yet. But there is this is the runoff for the primary election that took place in March. Early voting goes through Friday. If you can't early vote, there is no early voting on the weekend, but election day is actually next Tuesday, May the 28th, the day after Memorial Day. For those of you who were had any kind of damage or without power during this recent these tornadoes and these straight line storms, I hope that you're doing better. I hope that your family is well. I'm sending you a light. If you don't have any power yet, just know that I'm sending that to you, and I hope that you get it back soon. It's really hot, but I just wanted to acknowledge it has been quite a time, and many people are still in recovery mode. Stay safe. And remember, if you're not registered to vote, get registered, because later this year, we really need to show up in a major way. We see the attacks happening on women, on people of color, and I'm gonna say it especially on Black women, right? We see it. And so one of the things that we can do is to exercise our voice by voting. I'm never going to tell you who to vote for. I'm just going to suggest and encourage you to vote your values. But be an informed voter so that you know the policies and the people who you need to select that will impact your family the way that you want it to be impacted. So make it a great week. Remember, do something kind for yourself and do something kind for somebody else. I'll see you next Wednesday on Chalk Talk. Peace.